Off like a herd of turtles. You ready?
10-4, good buddy.
Welcome back to the Deep Gripping Reality Podcast. I'm your host, Steve, and today I am joined, this is my first guest of 2023, probably my first guest in like 6 months to a year at least. I'm joined with a good personal friend of mine, somebody I really respect and in a lot of ways a mentor and business partner, Ginger Jansen. How are you, sir?
Another day in paradise, right?
Always, always. So we work together as me for the director of lawyers for the biker marketing, right? Is that how it works? Director of marketing.
Supreme Commander.
Yeah, why not? Screw it. I am the supreme commander of all things lawyer and marketing. This is not legal advice. See, I've gotten this. I got this down. So,
Sure.
Director of marketing for the biker lawyers, and you as the business manager for the biker lawyers, right?
Yes.
And so you're kind of not only the money guy, but you're the pretty face, asking all the questions, and letting Pete, the owner, answer all the legal questions, right? Essentially, that's how we have it set up.
That's why I have all this ink, you know?
Yeah.
Gotta stay beautiful for the people.
Of course. Yeah. You're the face. You're a lot prettier than I am.
I think they hired me as, what's the Ocean's 13 workaround? Where if they hire somebody as a waitress, they hire them as a model who waits. So
That's
that way
hilarious.
they can fire based on weight. That's me, right? They
Yeah.
can fire me based on
Yeah,
weight, so
I
I've got
would
to stay
assume.
pretty for it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That explains why you go to the gym all the time. That makes perfect sense.
Absolutely.
Keep the keen mind. But I think that, what started as a working relationship, I think I consider you one of my closest friends because we are very aligned in the kind of things we nerd out about.
Oh, yeah.
And in our work mentality. Like, we can't shut off. There is a work-life balance for sure. But we can't shut off our work brains no matter how hard we try. We just redirect it.
Yeah, it doesn't really shut off. I don't know, when you get passionate about something, what else would you expect? It's what you think about. Luckily, what we're passionate about is what we do for a living now. So it took a long time to shift the job over to that for me.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time doing legal work, and I still do plenty of it, but now it's like 50% of the job instead of 100% of the job, and now I get to spend a lot more time trying to figure out studio setups and just the tech side of it, which fascinating for me. I don't know. I love that we're in this era of tech where things have gotten cheap.
Oh, yeah.
Relative to what they used to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
these microphones once upon a time were used for Michael Jackson's Thriller. Not these specifically, but this brand, Shure SM7Bs.
No, this microphone we picked off on eBay came with an authentic certificate of authenticity.
It's coated in white somewhere then. All
That's
right.
gross. But no, let's talk about that actually, because so my regular listeners are going to notice that the sound quality is absolutely, theoretically, I haven't heard it, but superb compared to what my usual stuff is.
Yeah.
So those who have been listening for a while understand that my podcast started as a proof of concept that you can do anybody can do a podcast using nothing more than their phone.
Right.
You don't need a lot of fancy tech. You just need the time to do it. And to this day, 99% of my podcasts are recorded on my phone. Sometimes I'll use my Snowball at home as a mic, and I've actually heard that people prefer the microphone on my phone. And I've just switched over to the iPhone from an Android. So right now, we're on Shure SM7Bs, right? Is that it? Yeah.
Yep.
So we have two of them. And the reason that we're on two of them is because we have a studio that we've built for the biker lawyers that is specifically designed so that we can create and produce content at scale to help promote the business and help promote biker interests.
Yep.
And also learn about ways that we can essentially save ourselves money as a firm versus having to essentially pay other companies to come in and do this.
Sure.
That means that I have had to acquire a bunch of new skills I never thought I would, and you have.
Oh, God, yeah.
Now, one of your side passions is streaming.
Yes.
More specifically, playing Magic the Gathering Arena, right?
Oh, God. I love playing the game. Not just Arena. I play the paper iteration as well.
Nice.
And I'm what they call a paper boomer in that game because I've been around for the early days back when there wasn't tech involved at all. We didn't have digital. We just had paper.
Yeah.
And we had to sit down across from somebody who stank.
Yeah.
And definitely didn't bathe that week. And we had to deal with that as we played a game we loved.
Yeah. And then you realized it was you?
Thankfully, never. Thankfully, never. No, but there is a fair amount of that. They had, what do they call it, Crackgate at one point.
Nice.
Where there was an individual, morbid obesity is a huge issue for MTG players typically because they're hardcore gamers who will sit and play and eat disgusting food.
Yeah, just neglect the shit out of themselves.
Right, so there was Crackgate at one of the Grand Prix, which a Grand Prix is a tournament with over 1,000 people usually, in some cases upwards of 3.
Yeah.
And so there's just tables. It's in these giant convention halls. That's what they're used for, besides like basketball games and shit. They get used for Magic card tournaments. At least they did. And so this individual went with their, nice phone, and they had a friend take pictures as they posed next to the butt crack that was exposed of all these morbidly obese people in a line.
That's fantastic.
And they just did a bunch of photos with just doing these photos. These
different kind
poses.
of crack than I thought.
Oh my God, it was hilarious. And they got banned for that.
Of course they did, yeah.
Because the company's like, this is terrible PR. Like, yeah, it made USA Today news.
Yeah, of course. and of course, the Gene Simmons thought of there is no such thing as bad publicity, kind of out the window when you're talking about that.
Yeah, that was rough.
So picture if you've seen the show South Park and there's the guy playing World of Warcraft.
Sure. That's
all of the people that were in that world at that time. So if for those that are listening, they're probably going to automatically at this point assume that you are definitely not a casual player and that you have and try to on a regular basis play at a much higher level.
I played on the Pro Tour, yeah.
Exactly. And so when we're talking about the Pro Tour, what kind of prizes are involved with that?
At this point, it's all in flux. Wizards of the Coast, owned by Hasbro, is who owns this game and continues the legacy of it. So they have Pro Tour systems that have come and gone as COVID really disrupted things for everybody, including them.
Yeah.
Paper card tournaments were out for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
So they're bringing it all back, but we don't know how yet. They're going to announce it later this year.
Of course, yeah. Ironing it all out, yeah.
Yeah. But back in the day, they had quite the series. It was wonderful. I mean, I played for college scholarships when I was 15 and won a few.
That's crazy.
I think it financed my first, because I ended up going to community college for a semester, just one, and then moving over and doing a private college. And long story there. But I think it paid for the community college entirely because it was like 2 G's worth of winnings. And these were tournaments that were restricted to people that were 17 and under so that kids could win college money, scholarship money. It was great. It did huge things for growing the game and getting a generation into it.
Yeah.
They don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
It was called the Junior Super Series.
So why do you, obviously, there's people that come from all kinds of backgrounds that play Magic.
Sure.
And there's people that play, old school card Magic, paper Magic, as you call it, and there's people who just play Arena, which is the online version. And I think that the adaptation of Arena has probably allowed for a completely different audience, has allowed for a whole new generation to get into the game.
Absolutely.
And so, it's definitely very inclusive in that sense. Are there a lot of online tournaments?
Sort of is the answer. There are actually 2 online platforms. We have what they call Magic Online, also known as Moto, which is Magic Online Digital Objects. That was the original.
Yep.
It's trash, but it was what we had.
Yeah.
It was the first version, and there's still many people that have their entire collections on there. That was a huge thing for people, and they have really decent tournaments on there. Arena is a freemium model. So it's the new age version. It's flashier. It's got good graphics, and you can pay some money and get cards faster. But paying money won't alter your win rate. It just alters what decks you can build.
Gotcha. Okay.
So in my case, I've dumped well over $1,000, and I have everything.
So now, is there that you and I talk a lot about emerging technology.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the, when I say we nerd out about a lot of the same things, we've talked about AI, we've talked about various, streaming models and various communities that are built. So
Absolutely.
It sounds to me like if you were doing a tournament like that somebody who was smart enough and could write the code could essentially have a robot do it for them and fake it.
Oh no, that's kind of
to make the smart plays.
Oh, that's the beauty of this. Magic is the one game that AI hasn't cracked.
Really?
Nobody has ever successfully written a program that can play Magic, which is why they don't have computer tutorials past a very basic point. They can put set scenarios computers can play, but if you shuffle a deck and hand it to a computer, no computer, including ChatGPT, has been able to play.
Interesting.
There's too many variables at stake, and there's no way to weight the variables correctly. There have been 3 PhD people at MIT that have tried and failed to build an algorithm that can crack it. So
That's crazy.
The level of complexity is such that you don't have to worry about that, at least. The computers can't be utilized to optimize plays.
So that brings me to my next question, because you and I both have very analytical brains. We like looking at statistics. We like looking at, thinking very strategically.
Yeah.
And we worked together for quite a while before I was before I was full on just hired.
Right.
And that even though we went that route because you knew that I knew my shit.
Yeah.
So there was no need to really vet me in the sense of strategy. We've talked a lot in the past about when you bring new people on,
Yeah.
what is the litmus test that you like to do?
I don't think there is.
You said something at one point about you either have to play a round of Magic or chess. Do you remember this?
Oh, okay. This would be for attorneys. This is not going to be for other areas. But if I'm going to bring in a new attorney, I would want to know how they think strategically, how they think analytically, and I don't think there's a good litmus test for that most people have implemented in law firms. They just look at scores and grades and they say, okay, you're this smart then.
Yeah.
Like you understand the law at this level, so therefore you will be this good at it.
Yeah.
And it's rarely the case in my experience. I know people who were towards the bottom of my class that are amazing at trial because most highly intellectual people, to a degree, have issues with socialization.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things. Like imagine autism, Asperger's. You know what I mean? Like you have your brain can do these incredible things.
Yeah.
But your ability to do very basic tasks and connect on fundamental levels it's difficult for a lot of them.
Yep.
And so some of the people that I went to school with that got amazing grades. I know one of the gals that she was in the top 3, and she's a fantastic attorney, and her personal life has been the most insane ride I've ever heard of. Like, it has been wild.
Isn't that crazy?
Absolutely wild to hear what her personal life has been, and I have no idea how she has managed to pull it all together and balance it out, but she does, and she's good at it.
Yeah.
But amazing attorney. But if you were to ask if a traditional law firm would want her, the answer would be an emphatic hell no. She's been blacklisted from all of them.
Isn't that insane?
Because
so she has to have her own practice whether she wants to or not.
She does. Yeah. She does. Over in Des Moines, actually. Yeah. She does very well.
So when you say that playing either Magic or chess against somebody like that, you're able to see how their mind works.
Yes.
Do you mean as an opponent, or you're literally just watching and seeing strategically how they're thinking?
Well, the legal field is an adversarial process.
Right.
So I think it makes sense to play one-on-one games of strategy to see how they manage resources, time, stress. Like, to me, chess is probably the one that I would aim for because it's usually well known by people who are intellectuals.
Of course, it's one of the oldest games, if not the oldest game around.
Right. Not everybody knows it, but everybody can grasp the basics quickly. And if they can't, there's other board games I could go towards. I don't know that I'd want to do Monopoly, but
you're rocking Othello, aren't you? Why not, man?
Magic would be the preference because that's a much deeper game of strategy than chess. Yes, I fucking said it.
What's funny about that is, like, okay, so get this. So I feel like if that's the case, if you know that they play Magic, you know that they're on your nerd level, so they kind of have an unfair advantage already.
I would say that they have an advantage in the sense that I will be able to accurately estimate their skills quickly.
There you go.
Because in a chess game, you get a pretty good feel for how good somebody is, but I am not at the top level of chess. So if you beat me, you're beating mid-level player, right? If you're playing against me in Magic, I'm comfortable saying I'm in the top 1% of all players at this point. And so if you beat me, you know your shit.
Yeah.
Like, I know you know your shit. And I can accurately evaluate how good you are by how hard you lose if you don't beat me.
Yeah.
You know, are you able to grasp basic strategy? Are you making mistakes that are commonly seen?
And how you take a loss, too. I think that's important.
That's a huge factor. That's a huge factor. And that's why I would rather do litmus tests based on board games than just a basic interview.
Yeah.
Because basic interviews, everybody puts up a front. Everybody wants to be that smart, charismatic, yada, yada. You know what I mean? Like, there's just check boxes, you check them.
I did that for you.
Yeah.
You're not like this anymore, and you were in the interview. Yeah, that was just for you. I've actually had people that I hired because I used to be one of the things I had to do was hire people, and I had to interview people and all that. And and the interview guy was just smashing, fantastic, super charismatic. He gets on, and this was for a telemarketing firm. He gets on the phones and he is so monotone, it's ridiculous. No energy, just whatever. So you feel all right, whatever. And this went on for like a week, and finally I was like, "What is going on? You were a different human being when I interviewed you. You know what happened?" He goes, "Oh, that was just for you, man. I knew you'd want the energy." I was like, that's what I want in calls. He's like, I can't do that every day. You know how much coffee I had to drink that morning? And I'm just thinking, what? Duh. So Gary Vaynerchuk has this thing he says, hiring is guessing, firing is knowing.
Yeah.
I knew at that point when I had to let him go, I knew. And I did give him a chance to try and do it right. But you're right. I think that's a really smart way to do it. It's a very unique approach to business. And so I know you don't have a whole lot of time, so I want to kind of segue that. You've trusted me to do the marketing side of things and to try and experiment with different marketing stuff and be able to show, you know, what the needles are, what the KPIs are, and when we're going to hit them, how we're going to hit them. And in exchange of that, I'm like, okay, so if this is what we would like to do, or you come to me, this is what we'd like to do, you're the one who determines what tech we use.
Yeah.
And so we have at our disposal, we've been very fortunate to get some top of the line tech.
Sure.
And the quality is just massively better than almost anybody else out of there I've seen. So what goes into that process? Because it sounds like as a guy who grew up, playing some Magic and loving Magic, and then a guy who has an MBA and a JD and has a business mind, that doesn't really translate in my brain to tech. And then on that note, before you answer that, your stream that you do is called the Dark Stream.
Sure.
And it's with your best friend Cam and help me out with the other guy's name. I always forget. Gabe, yes. Yeah. Gabe. Sorry, Zero. And see, I do know that. Yeah. Anyway, so you guys do the Dark Stream. You play Arena. Sometimes you do Paper Magic. And with the Dark Stream, you've talk about that. Tell me about that. How you take your mental business practices, your knowledge of tech that you've had to accrue, because in a very short time, you've produced one of the greatest streams I've ever seen on any platform for anything.
Thank you.
And yeah, I'm not blowing smoke. Like, it's the visual quality, the sound quality, everything about it is so freaking on point that it's mind-boggling, especially as short of a time as you've done that. So, talk.
Gotcha. So for me, I wanted to do this streaming world a while ago. I remember growing up and MTG, we used to have a thing. You can still find coverage of this back in the day. I think they have segments on YouTube. But the Pro Tour, they rented out a shitty ESPN channel and broadcasted on one of those weird ESPN, like ESPN 5 or whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that was what the Pro Tour was on growing up.
ESPN 8, the Ocho.
Right, so before we had streaming, you had to figure out what channel it was on, and I grew up without cable, but I had friends that did, so we would watch the Pro Tour, me and some friends, and that was like once every 3 months, it was like a Golf Masters. Nice. You know what I mean? That's basically what, there were 4 of them every year, and then there was Worlds.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was like so compelling to me, and that was the dream from a very young age was I'm going to play on that stage, I'm going to succeed on that stage, I'm going to become a professional Magic player, and that's what I'm doing for my life.
Nice.
I failed.
Well, life happens, yeah.
I made it to the show.
It's every kid going, I'm going to be a YouTuber, I'm going to be Mr. Beast. Well, are you?
Yeah, I made it to the show and I flamed the fuck out. You know what I mean? I started out and to go from day 1 to day 2 of those, because it's a 3-day event.
Yeah.
And it's like 300-ish people that are playing.
Yeah.
And to get to day 2, you play 8 rounds day 1. You have to win at least 4 to get to day 2. And I started 0-6.
Oh, yikes.
So after 0-5, you're already like, I'm out. But like, there's 3 rounds left, and it's the Pro Tour. It's the show.
Yeah, of
I'm
course
gonna keep playing. You know.
Yeah.
I felt pretty good when the person sitting next to me at 0-6 was a Hall of Fame pro player as well.
Nice.
The one that they based the movie 21 off of, John Finkel.
Really?
Yeah, John Finkel. And so, and he manages $1 billion hedge fund right now.
That's so crazy.
Great
movie, by the way. 21.
Really, really smart dude. Actually, he and Zero, Gabe, once smoked so many cigarettes outside of a Pro Tour they lit the trash can on fire on accident.
That's hilarious. Wow. So Gabe's into arson. Gotcha. Check that out.
Yeah, Gabe's also been to way more Pro Tours than me. I think he's been to 6.
Wow, that's crazy.
Darth Camjantace has been to 0, but mostly lack of interest. He has a very deep understanding of the game, just doesn't care as much.
Yeah, he plays it for a different reason.
He plays it for the joy of it, less for the competitive side. 0 and I play it because we like to win. And
so if you and him are going head-to-head, we're going to call this right now. You and him going head-to-head, no holds barred.
Sure.
Paper Magic.
Sure.
Who wins?
Tune in every Tuesday and you can find out.
Okay.
We do Paper Magic. We do Vintage is the format that we do on Tuesdays, and we do head-to-head straight through for 2 hours on the oldest format, and that's
who has the highest win ratio so far.
Depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about testing, we don't really count it because it's just testing. You know, it's prepping for a tournament. It's like scrimmage. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
When you get to tournament play, we would have to go back. Wizards actually has a database of all of your wins, losses for lifetime.
That's crazy.
And we'd have to go look at the lifetime results and see where it's at, because we each have some weird wins and losses in different places, and he got into the game almost a decade before me. He's a decade older.
Yeah.
So he was in way back when it started. A few years after it started. I got in about 10 years after it started.
97 was the first time I ever played the game.
Right, and I got into the game around 2002.
Yeah.
I think 2002, 2003. He started back in 94, 95.
Yeah.
So, different levels of experience too. It took a long time before I could beat him, even at small tournaments, because I was learning. I was 15.
Right,
you know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah,
like
of course.
you got to go through that. But with regards to how this translates in the business world.
Yeah, how did you go from playing paper tournaments at a national level to now being what I think is it's going to be one of the biggest MTG streams out there, if within the year, if not sooner. I think it's going to be fantastic. I've seen it, and to be very clear on this for the audience, I have nothing to do with the production of this. So it's not like I'm tooting my own horn, which I do a lot. This is 100% you. I will sometimes give you a little bit of feedback about a promotional piece and my thoughts, but overall, I have nothing to do with this. So tell me how you go from being the paper guy to now you guys are streaming Arena and everything's amazing. So talk about that.
So I put it very simply. Magic teaches you how to be a businessman and how to deal with obstacles in life better than any other game I've ever encountered, and I've played a lot of them. Mm-hmm. I've played Dungeons and Dragons, I've played Pathfinder, I've played Monopoly, Scrabble, whatever. I've played all these different games over the course of my life. Magic teaches strategic thinking. I don't think there's a better game to play to get ready for law, because there's this thing in Magic called the stack, where you will cast a spell and somebody else will have the opportunity to respond. So then they can cast, and then you can cast, and they can cast. And you get this stack of spells going up, 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 up. And then they resolve in descending order. Mm-hmm. And that is actually a really good analogy for civil procedure and how different motions will be dealt with in a court of law.
That makes sense.
Learning how different pieces will interact with each other. It's a very difficult concept for most, we call them L1s, first-year law students, to understand, because they've never dealt with stacking and order of operations outside of math, and math doesn't really translate into law very well.
Yeah,
seen by the fact that most people in the field of law can't do fucking math, at least outside of a basic level. Anyway, it teaches you how to think strategically in a way that no one had ever really shown me before. For instance, in an average format, so let's say standard, which is the latest 6 sets that have come out over the last 2 years. You have to take that entire card pool and you have to condense it and figure out what you think, which combination of cards in a 60-card deck is going to beat everything else.
Wow.
And so everybody is trying to do this at the same time, so you develop what is called a metagame. Mm-hmm. And a metagame is like, if deck A beats deck B, then what beats deck A? So that's deck C. So does deck C get beaten by deck B?
4D chess.
Right. So now if you have a 3-deck metagame, we call that a pyramid or a rock, paper, scissors meta.
Yeah.
But what if there's a 4th deck that is not good, except in this specific instance? So you start learning how to deal with these, and then let's start applying that to business. You have law firm A, law firm B, and law firm C. They have positions in this market, that market, and the other market. This one wins in Wisconsin. This one wins in Minnesota. Why are they winning? You learn to analyze how they're composed, what it is that gives them strategic advantages, and where there are gains to be made, because that's what you are doing every time you sleeve up a deck.
And where you can compete and where it's worth it, so you're not wasting assets.
What resources you have at your disposal, too, because in Magic, unless you are rich, at least back in the day, you didn't have the money to build everything.
Of course, yeah.
So you had to reposition, you had to trade cards, and card trading is like trading stock. Like I had as a child, it was wild. The community was so amazing, but they lent me a deck in a format called Legacy. This deck was worth $10,000, and a 30-year-old man just handed it to me and said, "Get it back to me in a week." Never signed a contract, nothing. Just trusted me. I did. I got it back to him. But I'm saying this, if I was ever trying to move money from this country to another, I would take all of my money, I would dump it into old school Magic cards that retain value, move to the next country, and then unload it all for cash again, because it is impossible to trace.
Yeah. So thanks for teaching us money laundering. That's fantastic. I mean, it is a business marketing podcast. Why not?
I mean, when I went to the Pro...
That's impressive.
When I went to the Pro Tour, I had to go into Vancouver for the Pro Tour.
Wait, okay, I'm sorry. You have to tell the story about the guy with the bag and the thief.
There's so many of those.
Okay, well, so you told me, you said that thieves in the Magic community, literal thieves, not like in the game, but literal thieves are looked upon horribly. And they you were telling me about at one of these Pro Tours you were at.
Grand Prix.
Yes. Okay, you know the story I'm talking about?
Maybe, but continue.
So basically, he had a bag and he had all this stuff, and somebody tried to just grab it and go. And all he had to do was yell, "Thief."
Oh, yeah, they piled right on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all these people just were like, boom. It didn't matter that nobody knew this kid.
Remember how we talked about Crackgate? Now imagine 40 of those fat motherfuckers sitting right on you. and waiting for the cops to come.
Yeah.
And that's basically what happened.
Busted ribs, sure.
Yeah, I don't think he made out very well with it, but
Oh man.
But I mean, that's the thing. These convention halls were, in a weird way, like banks took their fucking bankroll and just walked in and put it down next to them at a table. People would have hundreds of thousands of dollars in cardboard stock sitting in binders right next to them as they played, and they're focused. Yeah. So if you just walk by and grab it, and that happened from time to time, sometimes you got away with it.
Yeah.
But because this was a problem, the word thief meant people reacted instantly.
Yeah.
Because everybody was like, okay, where's my shit? Who's running? That dude's the thief. Get him.
Yeah.
You know, like we don't
if he steals that guy's shit, he's coming after mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting. It's, you know, that level of loyalty for strangers doesn't exist in most worlds anymore. You know what I mean?
True.
In most, I mean, whether we're talking business, we're talking about anything. It's that level of loyalty to a perfect stranger is non-existent.
I think it would be different in other contexts for a lot of reasons, but one of the more important ones is that everybody instantly knows what that word means in that area because we all play the same game. Anywhere else in the world, everybody's got different lives.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But imagine this exact same scenario playing out at like a Gen Con, and everybody's got one asset to protect, and everybody knows it's that asset, and that, you know, like it's a costume or something, and then somebody grabs your costume. I think you would get a similar response.
Yeah.
Because there's a community that's built around one concept.
Yep.
Out in the world, if somebody yells thief, half the time my mind's gonna be like, okay, but is it like food? Because I'm not going after them if they need to eat. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care if they're pulling in Aladdin. Good for them. Fuck you, grocery store.
Yeah.
I don't care. You overpriced your eggs. You get what you deserve.
That's hilarious. That's accurate. But yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'll never care on that scenario. Or if it's somebody at a bank, I'm like, federal money, don't give a shit. Have fun, U.S. government.
That's insured. Have fun.
Yeah. Good for you. I don't root against bank robbers. I don't give a shit.
Yeah. That's, you know, it's
But personal assets. Yeah, if somebody comes over and they steal your car, you're obviously rooting against that thief because that's taking from somebody who's also poor. Taking from the government, who cares? They have so much money, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're paying,
and if they don't, they can print it.
Well, you know, and you're paying taxes on taxes on taxes because they tax the money you make, they tax the money you spend, they tax the money that you get from being everything. Every fucking thing gets taxed 10 ways to Sunday. So if you rob the federal government, good for you. I don't give a shit.
You know, it's funny. I briefly listen to a lot of different podcasts occasionally.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff I do on my time for research is marketing related. But I was listening to Tuesday Tea with Sweet D, which was a good friend of mine we've talked about in the past that I was on.
Sure.
And she had a tax specialist on her Tuesday episode this week. And she said one of the easiest ways to get audited is to do your own taxes.
Yep.
And it's it's that kind of thing that you don't think about as far as if you wanted to get audited, like that's a trigger. They're looking for people who are trying to do their own taxes because they know, I don't know, man. It's just, we could get on a whole nother episode about the government and how we believe that the government should be versus how it is and all that stuff. But it's just, it's a very unique world we live in. And anytime you can find communities and you can build communities, let's see if you can figure out where I'm going with this.
Streaming.
Yep. If you can see his brain works very much like mine, which is why I think we're good business partners. But if you can build a community that respects each other and wants to grow together and authentically. Now I'm not talking about the crypto communities or the
Wall Street bets.
Yeah, I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about because here's the funny thing about this. I've been looking at a lot of this crypto crap, right? And a lot of these crypto scammers, they get away with billions of dollars, right?
Sure.
The reason they do is because they promise a safe environment where you can put money and it can't be rug pulled. In other words, all the money pulled out.
Yeah.
And then right before it goes live, they change the code and they pull the rug, right?
Right.
And so people want to believe that community is out there, and you're building something very unique. I don't know. Are you prepared to talk about that at all, or do you want to talk about that?
I mean, we can talk about crypto if you want. I have money in it.
No. Fair enough. That too, but no, I'm talking about the rebellion. Can you do?
Oh, the MTG rebellion?
Yeah.
I mean, that to me was based on some frustration that I had trying to figure out how to grow the stream, and I'm one of those people that I move pretty quick, and I like to move quickly, and I like to fail, and I like to fail quickly.
Yeah.
I follow the scientific process in that sense because it's not about I don't do perfection. I think it's a ridiculous pursuit. I'm not about it. I fail constantly, but I fail quickly, and I learn as quickly as I can from said failure. And what I learned is that the streaming game is somewhat rigged at this point. Like if you got in early and you made it, great. You're at the top of the algorithms forever. As long as you keep maintaining at least, you will stay towards the top.
Yeah.
But for everybody who's trying to get into it now, and I want to first address the fact that people are trying to get into streaming, and there's all these people that are, like, have such hatred for that. They're like, oh, why don't you work a real job? I was like, do you understand how appealing it is to work a job you could work anywhere so you can leave this goddamn country when you want to? Like, if you look around at the U.S., the appeal to being able to walk out of the country at a moment's notice is high, and streamers have that. Because all they have to do is pack their gear up, fly out to another country, and stay at the other country.
Set up in a hotel room.
Yeah, get a residency. It's not that hard to get a residency or a work visa, and you can get a work visa as a streamer.
Yeah.
Point being, that's why it's attractive. More than anything. It's not about traveling the world. It's not about all that shit for most of us. It's about the freedom to have autonomy, to have respect, to not have a boomer boss. And I'm lucky, you're lucky in the sense we don't have a boomer boss that's an asshole. We have a good one. We're very lucky in that sense.
I've said that before, yeah.
Because there are many boomer bosses that are like, the reward for hard work is more work and less pay, you know, and that's
pull yourself up by your bootstraps like I did.
Which is a ridiculous statement because it's actually based on a poor metaphor. Pulling yourself up by your bootstraps is literally an impossibility in the metaphor it's originally intended in. And that's why it's a stupid metaphor that they keep using. It should not be a phrase that they're anyway.
Yeah, that's a whole nother rabbit hole. I'm with you there. I've actually talked about that on the stream, but yeah, on my podcast.
To me, it's about autonomy and respect, and that is why I try to push in this direction. And what I realized is that the game's somewhat rigged. The algorithm favors larger streamers because it wants eyeballs. So if it assumes if you are a larger streamer, you have a better show.
Yep.
Which means that more eyeballs, which means more people on the platform. And I don't blame them for doing this. That's business. Should they have a way to help discover smaller streamers? Yes. Is Twitch owned by Amazon and YouTube by Google? Yes. Are they in the middle of a tech war and neither of them has optimized platforms? Yes. There is no optimized streaming platform. There are advantages and disadvantages, and both sides are ignoring the community entirely when they beg and plead for certain features that they will not give.
Nope.
But
could. That's the other thing that's annoying.
But this is the lesson you learn from Magic. You take the circumstances as they are. You take reality as it is, and you accept it, and you find a path anyway. You don't always get to play the thing you want to play. You don't always have the money to play the way you want to play. You have to learn how to succeed with the resources at your disposal. In my case, it was finding a group of like-minded MTG streamers and forming a coalition, a rebellion, if you will, to help each other. And everybody puts in different pieces. There's 3 of us that have nicknamed ourselves the Gatewatch.
Nice.
And it's Magic lore. The Gatewatch are the planeswalkers that guard the multiverse, essentially.
Nice.
And look out for all the other walkers and try to make sure they don't get wrecked by the villains of the story.
Nice.
And they do a lot of martyr sacrificial shit, which I consider some of what I do to fall in line with that as braggartly as that. I don't know. It's braggadocious to say it that way.
It's not at all, because you are taking risks so that you can learn it and pass it on. That's my entire business model as an adult.
It's more so that I only stream 4 hours a week right now.
Yeah.
The average streamer that's trying to do this is streaming over 20. I could do that with my nights, but if I do that, I don't have time for the community.
Yeah.
So I focus 80% of my time, free time, into helping that community and not on personal streaming. So my stream hasn't taken off. I mean, it's had rises and falls and all that, but I haven't focused on it for a while because I'm trying to build something bigger. Right now, we're trying to build a tournament platform from scratch so that we can all use it because the tournament platforms for MTG are terrible for third parties.
Yep.
So we're trying to build one from scratch, and if that succeeds, then we'll move on to the next endeavor as a community and keep going and keep building each other up. We do streamer showdowns between different MTG community members of this community.
These are great collaborations, by the way.
Yeah, every Wednesday night we will, and we've started doing them as like title fights, and we'll take streamers and we'll just do fight after fight. Every 2 hours, it's another set.
Nice.
And we've got usually about a 6-hour block now that's filled, and that is something that I started just for fun as an experiment about 6 months ago, and I'd invite different streamers on, and we'd try it, and then it just kind of kept evolving and evolving, and now
you learn something new from every episode, every event.
Yeah, and I'm also fortuitous. I get to work with an individual known as Max Damage and his wife, ICPJs. And those are their streamer handles. I'm not going to give out real names for them.
Thanks for not doxing them. I'm sure they appreciate that.
Yeah, and ICPJs is, in my opinion, one of the greatest graphic design editors, creators, etc. I've ever worked with.
I concur. And the fact that she doesn't do it full time blows my mind.
Yeah, she's in the service industry for her part-time-esque job, and then she spends the rest of the time working in graphic design for side projects for people.
So let me just pull this back for the muggles like myself out there. Okay.
Sure.
If you were to go to YouTube and you search MTG Rebellion, you're going to see this cool logo of a dude in a red robe, essentially, that's almost cartoonish, but it looks really kind of cool. And you'll see a bunch of pictures of my boy Ginger here, and some of them with Cam, some of them with other streamers. And what's interesting is, I don't care if you're into this platform, into this game, whatever.
Sure.
You will, especially these later episodes, you will really appreciate the quality. He's got graphic overlays. He's got sound effects. And they're not just like graphic overlays. They're very dynamic. So behind the scenes, he has hotkeys set up. And there's a lot of production value in this. There's some stuff that's green screen. There's a ton of really good production value. So he's sunk a lot of his own personal resources into this to learn how to do this effectively. Because a lot of streamers, you said it's for the autonomy. I think that a lot of streamers in general, not necessarily in your community, but in general, want to be YouTubers, want to be streamers because they like the idea of being able to produce content at scale and make money. They don't realize how much money goes into it. I've learned over the last year that to put out high quality video content takes a lot of editing, and that takes a lot of time. I don't care how good you are.
Yeah.
I don't care what shortcuts. And you've learned that in order to put out the highest quality content, you have to have a really good tech. It's possible to put out good quality content with lower value, lower quality tech, but it's a lot easier and a higher quality product. So what's amazing to me is that watching any of your streams, it's fascinating because there's a lot of attention hacking, even if the game itself isn't interesting you, because there's background side effects, there's transitions, there's a really awesome intro and outro, there's dynamic backgrounds with like flames and smoldering, and all of this has been custom built and custom made for you by this awesome graphic designer, and in record time. Like it's fast how well she does this. It's mind-boggling. And so the talent pool is out there, and I think that you've built a really good network of talent that you can draw on. And so again, for those who don't know what this is, if there are people out there, kids, adults, whatever, that want to get into the streaming world, mostly Magic, but I would say any, really, you're building up resources and answering the questions that you may have had, that others have had, that there was no real resource for. So when we say building the community, this community exists in two places mainly. You've got the website itself, which I believe is mtgrebellion.com, right?
Yep.
And then you also have a Discord server.
That's where most of the discussion takes
place. The Discord server is also impressive for a few reasons. You've built bots that answer questions. You have different rooms for different things, all of it Magic the Gathering themed. So if you know the lore of the various universes, you'll get it. You'll get the references. They're almost like in-jokes. Mm-hmm. And there's different places for different things. So you can get help on different things. So when you say you're devoting 80% of your time to the community, what do you mean? To building out that platform or to answering questions? How so?
Mostly it's trying to find a path for smaller streamers to develop. And a lot of it for me is trying to find the right kind of people. And that Discord server is to a degree our testing grounds for who's going to make the team when this is done. Because there will be 8 streamers that make the team when we're done with all of this. Phase 2 is where we're at right now. And it's
nice.
A 5-phase plan. But phase 2 is developing the team and building the platform to work with, and from there we will proceed into phase 3, and that's a
will
whole
you be on the
thing.
team?
Already made it, obviously. Yes.
Okay, good. I would hope so, because you're putting a lot of your time and effort into this.
There's 3 people on the team right now that are founding members,
yeah,
and everybody else will get brought through as we develop processes.
Yeah.
So I spend a lot of time on there. I work with different people. I do reviews of other people's streams and just give them feedback like, hey, okay, the audio here is off. You may want to consider this upgrade or this shift. Here's some free resources because there's a lot that people don't know about.
Yep.
If you want to up your game and you have money, here's where you go spend it because this works, this doesn't based on this microphone or that video card or,
which is all stuff you've had to learn through trial and error.
Oh my God, so much trial and error. So and all of this information is on the web already in different YouTube videos, but you have to know where to look. You have to know what to phase out because not everybody has the right information. And I don't know, like it's the Library of Alexandria, but with traps, and that's YouTube.
And it can be outdated as well.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a passion project for me. It's something I'm going to be working on for probably years to come. I told everybody at the outset of this when I finished the beginning phase with the other 2 founders. God, this was like 3, 4, 5 months ago now.
Yeah.
I said, this is a 3-year commitment.
Yep.
If you're on board for 3 years, you're in right now because these will be the founding members and these will be the people who stand to hopefully gain quite a bit when it's all said and done. But it's a 3-year commitment. Don't plan on making money for 3 years.
Yeah.
And we'll see where we're at. We're half a year in right now.
So the plan for this, business strategy-wise, you're going to have a couple of phases, I'm sure, and you may not want to pull back the full curtain, and I know we're kind of over the time that you wanted to spend on this podcast, but
I've got a couple minutes, exactly.
this is very intriguing to me. So the plan for this ultimately is will you always have the MTG Rebellion community on Discord?
Yes.
And that will always be a free resource?
Yes. That will always be a place for streamers to come get help.
Cool.
That is the goal. It will always be a place for them to get help, for those that are willing to come and actually be humble enough to ask for it.
Yeah.
You know,
a lot of people, nobody wants to admit that they don't know something.
Some people have the mentality that they want to achieve even if it's embarrassing, and those are the people I'm much more intrigued by. And not that we try to embarrass anybody, but you have to be willing to, eat a slice of humble pie and say, I don't know what this is. Help me.
Well, I haven't told you this, so I'm happy to be telling you it on my podcast. My recent research shows that when people who are in your target audience are looking for information, they turn more to Discord and Reddit than they do to Google. They don't search for it. So you're in the right place and you're building the right thing, and they want to be a part of that community. They want to feel safe, included, and like they're part of something. So then the first phase is, or the first part of it is that. The second part, the business part of it, you are, as you mentioned briefly, building out a platform that is essentially going to be
tournament software.
Tournament software, okay. And then I know that you've said ideally down the road you would love to be able to have the ability to do almost an ESPN-like commentating of live plays.
Yes, we're building towards that right now.
So are those two things intertwined, or are they two separate things?
Intertwined in the end. The idea will be that there will be a platform where we can run tournaments, and the proceeds, our cut of the proceeds from those tournaments will hopefully fund and support a team and a coverage situation. And the coverage, we already have coverage that I do once a month for Hollywood Pizza, who's one of the founding members.
Nice.
He runs tournaments for free out of his own pocket, about a $250 prize pool. He's got some sponsors that help take care of most of the cost, but he does that every weekend. Minus 3 out of 4 weekends.
He also is somebody who has really high quality content.
Oh, extremely, for what he's working with.
Yeah. Super high quality content. And I think that's, getting smaller streamers discovered begins with having something people want to watch.
And he regularly gets around 200 people watching those tournaments throughout the 8-hour day.
Isn't that crazy?
And that's just that's what he's limited to with the current platform, which is why we're building a new one.
That's
because
amazing.
The current platform's trash. And
so
once
will
you get
the
a good
new
one,
platform be pay to play?
It'll be, think of it like going to a tournament in a card store. It'll be like $5-10 to enter a tournament, and 90% of somewhere between 80 and 90% of those proceeds will go into the prize pool. And everything else goes into overhead to make sure we take care of the cost of running the platform and coverage and everything else.
Yeah.
But our goal is to give the players most of that money back as prizes.
That's fantastic.
And that way people can compete, and we can get to a place where we're running it somewhat like Poker Stars was at its, high point.
Yeah.
Where there's just tournaments constantly firing.
So what's intriguing to me, and kind of in closing of this, at the beginning of the podcast, I said that you were a serial entrepreneur at heart. And I think that, this conversation is given exactly what I mean. I think everybody these days likes to think of themselves as an entrepreneur. It's a fancy term. Nobody wants to put in the work to be one. And I think that you are doing something that I really respect, which is figuring out ways to make something you're super passionate about profitable. Maybe not right this second, but you're building a path to profitability, which I think is smart. And as a byproduct of that, as you are experimenting with technology to make what you want to work, we're getting to use that for the Biker Lawyers.
Yeah, it's a direct byproduct.
It is a very, very direct byproduct because, again, we've got these mics, we've got, you know what I mean? And it's just really interesting. I think we find ourselves in a very, as you like to say, we're very fortuitous that we know not everybody has this opportunity. Yeah. This is the first and probably only podcast I'll record in this environment. Just because I don't think I can have you as a guest every time. And it is a 45-minute drive to an hour drive to get here. So recording on my phone is easiest. But, it's part of the reason I wanted to test this for my podcast, because I like to test things out and bring it to my audience, is to show the quality difference. Listen to this episode. Listen to me having a guest. Now listen to one of my older episodes. I've had an episode where I've had a guest sitting there across the table and we're using the phone. Best audio quality with a guest. I've had ones where I do it in VR and I pull the audio, and I had to re-record my side of the audio for it for whatever reason. I had to go back and literally re-record every line. And I've had ones where they're on virtually, right? And you can tell the difference in quality. So quality matters when you're following your passion. Figure out ways to reinvest. Mr. Beast did that. For the longest time, his early videos, he was literally paying out of, he didn't have a good camera. Everybody's like, get a better mic, get a better camera. He couldn't afford it. He was shooting on an old iPhone, right? So if you have one piece of advice, one takeaway for anybody that might be listening to this, keeping in mind that my audience often is either podcasters, entrepreneurs, or people, well, it's usually small business owners that love stuff about marketing and business and leadership hacks, right? What word would you say, what can you offer in terms of advice that you've picked up over the last year or so in building Magic the Gathering, the Rebellion?
Trying to find something to say that isn't hackneyed or cliche. You know what I mean?
Sometimes the cliche answers are the best. I mean, whatever comes to mind. Like, honestly, like, what is something that you wish a year ago you would tell yourself? You could go back in time and ask yourself a question or answer a question. What would you say?
I don't know how many people that are in the streaming world ever played competitively in sports, but for those who have, you will understand this implicitly. You are going to have to spend most of your time training. You're going to have to spend most of your time in the trenches. The performance, the show, that is, like, think of it in sports. It's one night a week.
Yep.
The other 6 days, you are spending working towards that. And I think it's worth noting that you're going to spend 90% of your time on the underbelly of it and working towards a vision. You're not going to get more than a moment in the sun. So enjoy the moment in the sun, but understand that most of this, like this right here, is the moment in the sun, proverbially.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Most of what I do is going to be done in the dark. It's going to be done on my own. It's going to be done because I'm motivated to do it. So find something you're motivated to do and understand that that's the way it is, and that's the way it should be, and that's okay.
That's why I wanted to shine the light and have you as a guest. So
I appreciate
your time, and thank you for coming on. Until next time, my friends, dig deep. I really appreciate my listeners. I appreciate you taking the time to hear this podcast. If you haven't subscribed, do so on whichever platform you prefer. And thanks again, Ginger. Appreciate it.
# grip it and rip it.
That's it, man.
I gotta run.
Yeah.
Let me start this.
Literally 2 minutes, so I take 7 minutes of your time.